We're on a worksheet called Special Formats. Excel has a number of built-in formats and also the capability of creating your own. In this worksheet over in column A, we've got some data entries. Nothing wrong with that. If you'd like to see a 4-digit year, one quick way is on the Home tab, go to the number group, click the drop arrow here above. How about short date? We get that display. Or, you saw the other one perhaps, long date. The column's going to have to be a lot wider for that one. There are all kinds of variations on what you might use here for dates as well. If you jump into Format Cells, and you can do that with Control-1 or possibly right-click and simply choose Format Cells. Go to the Number tab if it's not automatically selected. And we can use M's and D's and Y's in a variety of ways, but don't overlook the fact that there are many, many formats in here already. If all the data here in this worksheet is about the current year, maybe you want a format here that doesn't even show the year. It shows, for example, we've got March 12 here. And so we do see some examples in here where we're not seeing the year. In other cases, maybe we're not even seeing the day. So we can do month and day. Lots of combinations as we look through here. The other thing about this too is if you jump over to Custom, you're likely to see other formats that might have been created by someone else using this file, but you can use M's and D's and Y's in a variety of ways. For example, suppose you want day of the week. You can put in 4 Ds. Now that current format already has that, but we can put in a 4-day spelling of the day of the week. If we wanted an abbreviation, only 3 Ds. That would abbreviate the day of the week. We can put in a comma. Now, if we wanted to display the month, we can put in 4 M's to spell out the month or 3 M's to abbreviate it. Maybe I'll do a full spelling, 4 M's. If we want the actual day as a number, we can put in either DD. That would mean if the number is 9 or less, we'd have a 0 in front of it. If we put in a D, it will handle all days of the month properly. Comma, space, we might want a 4-digit year. Y. That's one of many different variations on what you might consider trying. So what we're about to see over in column A is something similar, and yet the day of the week will be abbreviated. We see that difference there. So lots of variations on how you might consider using that too. I think for time, most people will use the current display like this or the one that shows AM, PM. Now, there's a keystroke shortcut for that. You might have seen that in a previous movie. But if you wanted to explore other time layouts, once again, we can go to Format Cells, Control-1 or right-click Format Cells, go to the Time category on the Number tab and explore some of those options as well. Lots of choices there. Now, if you were putting in Social Security numbers or phone numbers, you probably wouldn't type them like this. Although there's a good thought behind what's being done here. Why type those dashes in Social Security numbers? Why type a phone number with left and right parenthesis and a space and a dash and all that if there's a way to format these? So ideally, in situations like this, you're going to be formatting a column like this either ahead of time or shortly after putting in maybe 1 or 2 of these, because there's shortcuts for both situations. I'm going to right-click column D this time and go right into Format Cells. And on the Number tab, category called Special, Social Security number, click OK. And we see the dashes. Now the dashes are not truly there. As I click on a cell, look in the formula bar, you don't see them at all. If I were double-clicking in here to do some editing, we don't see the dashes. If I made a change there, that should have been a 5. I'll press Enter. We see the dashes, but we don't see them while actually editing. Same basic idea with phone numbers. And we could do these 2 columns together. Same location, more or less. Control-1 takes us to Format Cells. Special category, phone number. Okay, there it is. So instead of typing 14 characters every time you're typing in a phone number, counting all those left parenthesis, space, dash, and so on, just type the number. And here too, as I click on one of these, or you can see in the formula bar right now, we don't see any of those characters. I need to make an adjustment here. I'll double click, change that 7 there to an 8, and Enter. We're all set. Don't type these. Now, sometimes you will get data from other sources where these characters are explicitly here. And even though it might seem like a little bit of work, what I would suggest is, for example, you could click column F here, and then on the Home tab, going far to the right, Find and Select, you could replace all left parenthesis with nothing, all right parenthesis and a space with nothing, and all dashes with nothing, and then apply the format. It doesn't really take that long. And then from there on in, with the format applied, you need only type 10 characters as you're doing data entry on these, writing the new ones. Fractions are much less likely to be used than they have been in the past, particularly since stock market quotes are now in decimals. But these numbers here in column I are simply formulas dealing with the data in columns G and H. Now, as you look up and down the list, something might strike you as a little bit strange. That's 2/3. Now, to the right, we see the actual percent difference here expressed as a decimal. But here we're seeing a fraction. If you do use fractions, you want to recognize that what's being displayed isn't necessarily accurate as you see it. Now, behind the scenes, this truly is accurate, so it can be a little bit confusing at times. That really isn't 2/3. It's 65.5%. Now, pretty close, but close enough sometimes isn't good enough. So just be alert to the idea here. If you are displaying numbers as fractions and you go to Format Cells by way of Control-1, you'll see a category there called fraction. Up to 1 digit, up to 2 digits, up to 3 digits. Now, maybe we're getting a bit obscure here as we try some of these, but we see what's happening now. And you can see how these are perhaps more accurate. But even here, there could be some differences depending upon the numbers being used. So not frequently used, but at least something to keep an eye on. And we have that same issue over here with zip codes that we had earlier with Social Security numbers and phones. Maybe you were typing in some zip codes and you had your head down and were just working on the keyboard typing in these numbers, and you didn't realize that those eastern zip codes that we see in eastern United States do have leading zeros in cases. And what happened here? Now, you could turn these into text entries, but more appropriately, since it's built in, click column P. Once again, Control-1 to go to Format Cells. Special category, zip code. In some cases, if you're using zip code +4, that's built in as well. It'll put in the dash for you. But here it's zip code. Click OK. Watch those leading zeros appear. For example, in the second entry, that will be 09110. And we see the others as well, too. And here, too, as with our earlier example with Social Security numbers, phone numbers, that sort of thing, start with applying the format shortly after putting this in or just before you put it in. It'll make these entries a lot simpler and easier. So a number of built-in formats here. And anytime you're looking at numbers to format them, keep in mind, when you go to Format Cells, there are lots of options here, lots of built-in features as we saw with date and time, and also those special shortcuts that we saw here with phone number, Social Security number, and zip code.